Yeah.
Yeah, there'll be a date stamp on it.
It'll be dated and yeah, you're fine, Grandma. You can leave light on.
What's that white thing?
Well, that's just the if I wanted to just take a picture of it while we're doing it.
Oh, okay.
So it's fine either way.
Now you all have to take an oath,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
no
did a blood
lies.
oath
You will be
before we
graded on your answers.
because I don't want to take an oath and be brought into court, and Chelsea will
It's
come
like
and
a-
examine me.
Yeah.
Deposition.
I'm gonna get up here
Yeah.
and blood urine first and see if he's gonna be the witness we want him to be.
All right. So we're gonna do both of you guys. So tell me your full name.
Kenneth Dana Kerns.
All right, Grandma.
Georgia Lee Kerns.
Okay, now spell Georgia, cause
All right, legally it's Georgia, but it was changed when I was just little. My sister changed it. Because when I went to school, I came home crying because the boy said Georgie, Porgy, Puddin' and Pie. And that
Those.
hurt my feelings, and so she said, well, spell it Jorja, and they won't do that anymore. So we changed it right then.
all right.
Did they still call you Georgie, Porgy, Puddin' and Pie?
I don't know, either that or I quit crying about it.
All right. When and where were you born?
I was born in Sheridan, Wyoming, May 12th, 1932.
Did your mom ever tell you anything about your birth? Like
No,
in the hospital or anything leading
um,
up to it?
when Dad came in to see me, do you want all this first?
Yeah, yeah.
He caught the train to come into Sheridan to visit his new son, and he stayed at the Sheridan Inn. Shortly thereafter, my mother and myself went out to his mother's place there in Sheridan on Work Street.
Nana's mother. Nana's
Yeah,
mother.
my grandmother. And they're probably there about a week before they came back to Sheridan, or came back to Parkland. It was Slack was the address. I hesitated a minute. No, it was Parkland, Wyoming at that time. Slack,
How did you come out to Parkland?
huh?
How did you come out to Parkland?
I don't remember.
Did they come by train?
I suppose.
Okay.
And Slack was the first post office here in this neighborhood. Parkman came later, after the railroad came through. The railroad came through in '93.
And that was when they moved the town of Pass. Is that?
No, the town, well, yes, you're pretty close. And the railroad company had bought land for their development along the railroad, and they found out that they couldn't sell liquor at the town of Pass because it was within 1 mile of the state line, and so therefore they could no longer sell liquor to the Indians there. Also, that elevation made it the highest point on the railroad, and was a logical place to have a switch yard where they could bring trains up that grade and then switch, you see, and go. And that was where Parkman then blossomed after Pass and Slack. Does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
Pass was the first one. It was right on the Bozeman Trail route and on the military route. Okay. At that time, Dad and Mother had moved here. Dad and Mother had lived on the Little Horn and had land in Montana on the Little Horn River. Ray Powers, the youngest of the Powers children, took over Tom Powers' homestead. And it passed into the hands of Ray Powers. Ray Powers was the youngest of those 5 Powers kids. Ray then traded with Dad his interests over on the Little Horn for the Powers interests that Ray had acquired here. So that sliding door shop is part of the original buildings, and they moved the house over there, I should say. But right out on the east side here was where the house is. And
Right by the lilac bush.
Yeah, but you're saying your family. It wasn't the Kerns, wasn't it the Danas that had it?
the Powers.
It was a Powers.
Yeah, Powers is traded with
Powers is traded with Kerns.
for this.
Yes. This
Yeah.
is Powers' homestead.
But Danas came first.
Well, but they were down the creek. Dana's were, correct?
You want some straightening on this?
Yeah.
Do you want me to get into the Dana side? Not really.
Megan,
Well,
you're
I'm
conducting the
processing.
interview.
I'm just listening. That's all I'm gonna do.
The Danas came here by way of the Oregon Trail, came to California, went to Idaho, went back to California, came to Montana, and settled in Phillipsburg, Montana. And this would have been about 1870, I think, is when the Danas came there. And my grandfather, Herb Dana, that's my mother's. Harriet, my mother, is Herb Dana's daughter.
Yeah.
And Herb Dana, Harriet Dana was her daughter. And I'm getting lots of skipping here.
It's okay.
Does this all make sense to you? Are you following any of this? No.
I'll
You're
give her
gonna
the
have a
Cliff's
question on it.
notes.
And Theophilus Rice Dana is the sire of all these Danas
Yeah.
that came out here, okay? T.R. Dana.
Yeah.
And he came to Phillipsburg with this and ended up buying a dairy herd. And other adventures that he participated in. Now, he had 3 children at this time. This is Theophilus Rice Dana. He had Herb Dana, the oldest, Ed Dana, the second, Deborah Dana, the third, and Newton Dana, the fourth. And Newton Dana drowned when he was about 12 years old. So he had 3 children at this time. Theophilus had Herb, had Ed, and had Deborah. Okay. Theophilus got a contract with the people that were building Fort Custer. Now, Fort Custer is built on the Little Bighorn River, right where Hardin is. That's Fort Custer. And after the Custer battle, the military decided they need to establish a permanent fort here near the Custer Massacre. Okay? And he, Theophilus Dana, got the contract to supply dairy products to those that were building the fort. And he left his family in Phillipsburg, came over and established himself at the building site of Fort Custer, and spent the winter by himself. Then his family came over, and that's when they trailed the dairy herd across to bring it over to Fort Custer to supply milk, butter, cheese, and anything that the military wanted. And T.R. Dana moved his whole family over onto the mouth of the Little Bighorn at that time. Now, somewhere between Hardin and Crow Agency is T.R. Dana's original home site. This is where he lived while he was fulfilling the contract. And so then, as things became more normalized in the settling of the West, T.R. Dana decided to move over here because one of the fellows that had worked with him at Fort Custer and one of those who had been discharged from the military at Fort Custer came up here to see what the country was like. Now this is in 85, I believe. Is this all falling in?
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you.
And that is when they built the stockade, hence the name Stockade Creek,
Oh, okay.
Ah.
to put his animals in at night. He and what was the other, this is written down in there. And he thought that's such wonderful country, I'm gonna move my whole family, so he did. And they moved in here, and I think it's in the winter of 85. Now that's the Danas.
Yeah.
Okay. The Powerses show up 2 years later. They come from Missouri by covered wagon. And they have a buggy, and they have quite an adventure. You've all read his diary, or
Yeah.
the diary?
Seen it, yeah.
You've all read it?
I have.
No?
Yep, I read it.
I haven't read all of it. I've read snippets of it.
Well, it's sort of repetitious, but you start feeling what they were doing.
Yeah.
And they spent then their first winter over here by Brittany Butte. And then Powerses moved over here with his family and acquired a
Patent.
what do you, not a quitclaim, but not a homestead, a
Patent.
relinquishment.
Oh.
A relinquishment of the homestead with the Powers. Then he acquired a patent to the property. Okay? Now the Danas are scattered all along the foot of the mountain. Herb Dana, Ed Dana, and you people, there's some homestead maps that are terribly valuable. And if you ever want to look at them, I'll point to you where they're labeled in there. There's lots of Dana property that was homesteaded clear across here. We get into the Aylshires. Now this is Deborah Dana's daughter-in-law. Excuse me, Deborah Dana's husband. He's a lieutenant at Fort Custer. And so that's how they get scattered through here. Herb Dana's the oldest. Ed Dana's the most adventurous. And Deborah, who later married the Aylshires, moved to Washington with the military. And they spent their entire life in the East. So we had two Dana boys here, Herb and Ed. Herb died.
That's right.
Then the Kernses get out here about 1906 is when they arrived. Come in. Who is it?
That's
Kate Blaine.
Kate Blaine.
Oh, hi.
Hi, Lady.
Thanks.
You're not
Taylor.
at the funeral.
Yep, no worries.
You're not at
No,
the
we
funeral.
we just didn't make it in time.
Oh gosh, that's too bad.
Don't let me interrupt.
A neighbor of ours that worked here at the ranch, and we've known them forever since we moved here, has passed away suddenly, so they were having the funeral at 6 o'clock tonight.
So this was Powers, and then Powers traded it to John Kerns. And Dad and Mother, and where I was born, all moved back in here about I think the house was built in 31. So I think they were in the process of building this new house when I was born.
So, Grandma, when and where were you born?
I was born in Hysham, Montana, January the 3rd, 1933.
Do you know any stories about your birth at all?
I've heard my father say, I didn't go to a hospital. My grandparents, the Dunham grandparents, had lost their ranch during the Depression. And so Mother and Daddy paid off as much as they could on it, and therefore they were short of money. So I was born at home, and my father said that the midwife put me in an oven. There was a doctor in attendance, Dr. Alexander. He was still in practice when I was in college, so he had a long, robust life. And Mother said, oh, they did not put her in the oven. Well, my father said, yes, they did, because I was so tiny. They did.
How big
You
were
needed
you?
to cook a little bit more? Is
Yeah.
that, you needed to bake just a little bit longer?
Well, I
Is that-
suppose the heat,
Yeah.
a little bit like an incubator.
Yeah, it was.
Do you know how big you were?
It might be on my birth certificate, I don't know. So, my father was treasurer of Treasure County. Mother was a school teacher before she was married.
Will you tell me their full names?
Mother's was Helen Foreman. She was not given a middle name, and I wasn't aware of that because she always told me her middle name was Darling, Darling. And her sister called me one day and she said, Georgia, why did you put down that your mother's middle name was Darling? And I said, because that's what Mother told us. And she said, your mother was never given a middle name. So you see, there's things you don't know about your parents that come out sooner or later. So
It's Foreman, F-O-R-M-A-n.
Foreman, it's very English. My grandfather came from England when he was a teenager. He lived in a little village out of London somewhere. I've got the book on it in here that they'd written, and he became a telegrapher on the railroad. I do not know when he met my grandmother. I do know he had a child from his first marriage, and my grandmother, her name was Leah, and my grandmother raised a girl plus their own 4 children. And my grandfather, he was a telegrapher on the Mojave Desert. And one of my uncles told me about at the time that he was a telegrapher out there, you were to check in ever so often because of Indian raids, that you were all right. And so he had several scares, Indians coming, wanting tobacco, and they do this with his hands. They wanted tobacco. And one of the neighboring telegraphers was visiting him that day, and the telegrapher got very mad and told the Indians to get out of there. And they found that telegrapher tied up and butchered. So this was a time, I can't give you the years it was, and I don't know when he met my grandmother. My grandmother, Foreman, her name was Gass. Her maiden name was Gass, I do know that.
Like how it's G-A-S?
I would guess so.
Okay.
2 S's, I thought.
Was there 2 S's? I'm not sure of that. So, they were married, and I do know, when we took you kids on that venture into North Dakota and so forth, that's what I was looking up, trying to find out where my grandmother, she proved up on a claim. She and the kids lived out in the wild, in a dugout, and my grandfather lived in town because he was a telegrapher. And he would come out and visit them, try to on the weekends. I don't know how far it was, but we did find a clipping in a newspaper that Will Foreman went out to visit his family on their claim and see them all. On the way back, he got lost, and it was way after dark when he finally found town. And the paper said, "Next time, Will, take a map with you." And I don't know anything about him. He was very religious, had a beautiful singing voice. I've heard my mother and aunt talk about that. And they raised 2 boys and 2 girls, plus Leah, his child by a previous marriage. When my parents, my grandparents had a ranch up Sarpy Creek, that is out of Hysham a ways. Mother said when she and Daddy were dating, they would go out to the ranch occasionally, and Grandma would fix dinner for them, and she'd have them all go out to the hill and pick up a bunch of coal and bring in for her. Well, this was the site of the coal vein, which coal strip in that area in there. So they lost their ranch in the 30s, just about the time I was born, and that's too bad because they apparently were sitting on quite a nice coal.
Yeah.
Yes.
What was your dad's name?
Ernest Scott Dunham.
You can get that chair out of the office and be more comfortable.
She likes to sit next to me.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, we haven't had enough
Excuse
time
me for
together.
interrupting.
No, we're doing good. Okay, Grandpa, tell me about your brothers and sisters, their names and like the order of everybody.
The order in which
Yeah.
Elizabeth is my oldest sister.
Okay.
She would have been born in 1922. The next is Herbert Dana Kerns. He would have been born in 27. Excuse me. That's 5 years. No, Burton was born in 27. In 1922, Herbert must have been born about 24, 23 along in there. I'll have to look that up. There's a lot of this stuff that supports a lot of this if you can find it.
I believe you.
Yeah. And then Burton was born in 27.
Does Burton have a middle name?
Burton Cooley Kearns.
Was Elizabeth's first name Elizabeth or Harriet?
It was Harriet.
It was Harriet Elizabeth, right?
Well, his father changed the name when he went to register.
The birth
The birth.
certificate.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about on the way down. We couldn't remember which way it was, but
And now, I have to sort through some of this stuff as I talk about it. My mother, your grandmother's, was born over there on near Gate Creek. She's lived her whole life over there. My mother never moved away from this community until she moved to Sheridan and then ended up in Gillette. But mother was a,
Oops.
as I say, I have to sort through all this. John Kearns married my mother in 1917.
Chelsea.
Not grandma.
They've got a bunch of wet wipes.
Oh, yeah. There's some more.
So your mom was about 20 when she got married?
Yeah, she got her teaching certificate, and then she immediately taught school. She taught school. Rosa Powers taught school here. Your family has taught school here.
Yeah.
This is long and deep in Kerns here, and
Yeah.
Powers is. Now, where are we?
You were telling me your brothers and sisters. We got to
All right,
Burton.
Harriet Elizabeth,
Yep.
Herbert Dana,
Okay.
and Burton Cooley. And then Kenneth Dana,
Okay.
1932. 55506, you want the whole thing?
All right, Grandma, tell me your brothers and sisters.
I had an older brother who only lived 3 days. He's buried in Hysham.
What's his
I have
name?
a sister who was 3 years older than I, Beverly Joy Dunham.
year was she born?
She was 3 years older than I, and so she was born in 1930.
Grandma, what was your brother's name?
It was, oh boy, I've got that written down somewhere. Or did they name him? They might not have
Maybe
named
not have named
him.
him. Huh.
I found his grave when my sister was visiting here the last time. We went out and walked over the Hysham Cemetery, and I did manage to find it in a stone. So,
What did it just say, baby
Dunham?
Baby
well,
Dunham, or
I
what?
believe that's what it did say.
I think I remember you've talked about that, and from what I remember right from other times when you and Beverly were talking about it, was that it just said like baby. Yeah.
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 So I don't think he was, of course now he probably would have survived. But,
Yeah, it's hard to say.
I
Yeah.
heard
All right. Grandma, what kind of games did you and Beverly play growing up?
oh, we played rummy. We played.
I was still expecting like
Yeah.
dolls, right?
Yeah.
Not rummy, like.
My sister hated dolls. She didn't even have dolls. They gave me dolls, but not my sister. Okay, well.
Before you could count and
Right.
play cards and weren't card sharp, what did you do?
Well, I played with my dolls. But,
Okay.
Beverly and I were never compatible till we got older.
That's funny. All right, Grandpa. Did you play rummy too? What games did you guys play?
Yes, but we played boy games, slack school games.
Yeah.
Everything originated out of the playground of slack. Pum pum, pull away, red dog, steel sticks. On and on we go. And this was a great little neighborhood in here. And we played rummy. After all the men had been fed and after all the dishes were done, we'd sit on the shady side of the house and play 5 or 6-handed solitaire.
That's the one thing I remember. Nana taught me how to play solitaire. I remember going and she had little candies that were coffee flavored, and it was such a big deal to have something taste like coffee. And sitting on her carpet, or it was really clean carpet, and she was teaching me how to play solitaire. So
Well, no, we'd have, 6 or 7 hands of solitaire on one table, and you could play on the other person's cards. You see. All of those that were out front, you could play on, and it became very competitive. And
First one to get rid of their
yes,
their
and
hand.
you finally got rid of all of them, you were the winner.
that
And
sounds
so
like a
you would
fun way.
observe
Of
everybody
Come
else's,
from a line of cards.
everybody else's, and you would realize that if you didn't play down the 10 of clubs, the guy that had the jack, he couldn't keep playing. see?
Oh, so that's true.
And
There's a
it
little bit
became-
more.
It became Jack Tisco. You had
Yeah.
to figure out your next move.
Yeah.
Lots of, what was the one where you went and hid?
Sardines.
And then someone would hide. Give me the name.
Sardines.
You hide with
We
them if
didn't
you
call
find
it
them?
sardines.
Take the can?
We played that.
Midnight Code.
But when you would find who you were looking for, chicken, come to roost. There you go.
Oh.
And all the chickens would come in to roost, and then you'd all get in the little horn cabin, and whoever had spotted who was hiding, they'd get to sneak out and go hide with them.
Oh.
While the rest of you were all in the little horn cabin there. See, that was a great game when we were at the Little Horn.
Sounds like a country kid game.
Well, we were country kids, don't think we were. We were long underwear and bib overalls. And that's another story about the chicken go to roost. I went and hid in the back seat of the car and fell asleep. And then nobody knew where Kenneth was. And they all started to panic because of that damn river.
Oh, well, yeah, that would do it. Yeah. Yeah.
And they started opening doors and looking everywhere. I'd climbed in the back seat, behind the back seat on the floor,
Yeah.
and fallen asleep. I was comfortable.
Yeah, you were. That's what you worked up about.
And yeah, you play one of hide and seek. That's
Yeah.
pure country, but it was kick the can, wolf. I draw a circle. Who'll punch the ice box? What in the hell is that one?
I don't know. I know there was some game you taught us out in the snow here about you'd stomp a
Fox
big.
and goose.
Yeah,
Yes.
that one.
And goose.
Yeah.
That was a winter game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we played lots of softball.
The only goose game I remember you teaching
Running
us
from
was
Snyder.
That was a pretty serious game too. That was life or death.
It was life or death.
And we danced a lot at recess as our entertainment
Oh, really?
Really?
during recess. And we had square dances with all the kids. We had Virginia reels. They would crank up the old Victrola. And all of us kids, and of course these were kids from 6 years old up to 8th graders.
Okay.
But we were lots of in the schoolhouse games.
Tell them about when you were ice skating on the pond.
Well, that's
last
another
night.
story, but
About Slack School.
we decided to have a mass ditch,
Oh, you're all gonna skip school?
and we all pledged secrecy to it. And my brother, my oldest brother, Herbert, was sort of a ringleader of these kind of things. And so when we were supposed to be outside for playing during the noon hour, all us kids took off and wandered down the creek, except two. And two of them told on us. And that was Charles Crum and
Mary Ann McDonough.
the Evans girl.
Oh.
And she told the teacher what we had done. And she came down and she got us. We were playing on the ice down here and made us go back to school. Terrible, terrible kids. And then I think one of the kids had a set of jacks. And the teacher wanted to use those jacks to play with the rest of us in a ditch. And he refused to give her the jacks. But that's all fun kid stuff.
Yeah.
We were in school at 8 in the morning. We would get home at 4. We always had chores to do before school. We had chores to do after school.
And was
What?
it 5 days a week at that point?
Yes,
Or- yeah.
yes.
And they hired you to help a little girl get her horse caught or something?
That was the first first money I ever earned. I got to saddle the little girl that lived down here at the